Welcome, everyone. So welcome to Embracing Continuous Learning, Navigating Skill Development in Tech, a panel discussion for early career devs by early career devs. My name is Chris, and I am a junior developer myself. And tonight I am super excited to be hosting this event and being able to chat with Adam, Angie, and Nonso, who are your panelists. And tonight we are hosted by Tech Tank, as you can see behind me, which is the organization that I'm part of. And we're an active group of devs, designers, PMs, and other techies that range from mostly junior and early career professionals to seniors with over 10 years of experience. And we host job-related workshops and sessions like these, as well as study groups and in-person social and networking events in Toronto. So if you're interested in joining, we do have a Slack group, and we'll plug in the link right now, and also again at the end. Thank you. And at the end of our panel discussion, you'll have a chance to ask questions to the panelists through the chat or by unmuting your mic. And after that, we can also make some time to do some casual networking. And in the meantime, we're going to post a Google Sheet where you can share your LinkedIns so everybody can connect with one another. And I believe Sammy has already plugged those in the chat. So yeah, I think the panelists are already up here, and I'm sure you're dying to hear from them. So let's have them up. And okay. All right. So thank you so much for being here, everyone. So let's start off with kind of just basic intros so everybody can get to know who you are. So maybe who are you, what do you do, and maybe a very brief journey of how you initially got into tech. No particular order, if anyone wants to just start us off.
I guess I could go first. Hi, everyone. I'm Nonso. I'm a developer, writer, tinkerer of all things, and I've been in the tech space unofficially for about since 2007, and started learning through then, but went another route, did a whole biology degree, and went down that route, and then found my way back after COVID, and I'm excited to give this presentation and like give this discussion as well.
I'll go next, I guess. Or sorry, Adam.
That's okay. Go for it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Angie, and I'm a front-end software engineer based in the Portland, Oregon area. And I've been a developer engineer for 2 to 4 years. I've done a lot to get to where I am now. And my journey, I think, started in 2016, technically. Started off in web design, but then I pivoted to web development through my boot camp, and I've had my real job for 2 years before being laid off, unfortunately, recently. But I'm always excited to be part of new communities and network with people on LinkedIn, people who love to learn tech and other things. So yeah, I'm just excited to share what I know, how I like to learn new tech and whatnot with this panel.
All right, I guess I'll go next. Oh, I'm the last one. Hi, everyone. My name is Adam. I am a full stack software engineer. I just finished my second contract about a month ago, and I'm currently looking for my next opportunity. Before programming, I worked as a teacher for about 4 years. I worked through the pandemic. Don't ask me about that. And I spent most of my teaching career teaching music to autistic kids in a special ed school, elementary, so kindergarten through 5th grade, or I guess 5 to 11. And I guess like what pushed me into software was like I had this idea for an app I wanted to make for my classes that I just couldn't find anywhere. So I just enrolled in a part-time boot camp 2021. Yeah, 2021. And I've been at it ever since, and I quit teaching about a year ago just to try to do this full time. So
that's awesome. I love how everybody's journeys is so diverse. So I think we'll have a lot of different perspectives today. So let's get into it by with a foundational question. as with the title of this discussion panel as well, how do you personally define continuous learning in the context of technology? And why might continuous learning and lifelong learning be so essential for early career devs in especially today's tech landscape?
I guess I could take that. So I feel like continuous learning is very special in tech because I feel like your success is sort of tied to, I guess, like your willingness to contend with your ignorance, to learn new things, even in a time crunch. And, the beauty of it is that it's not something you can teach. Like, I feel like a love of learning it's not a very common trait for people to have. Like in most other professions, there's like a certain level of learning that you reach that either like you can't go beyond or there's like little to no incentive to go beyond. And, in my experience, most people are just fine with that. Like part of the reason I left teaching was because like there was a limit to my growth despite me actively seeking out PD opportunities. And, you know, and I kind of feel like I was surrounded by like complacent people when I was a teacher. So like, in software, it's like, you can kind of you can find your crowd and you can find people who are way smarter than you, who are really enthusiastic about it. And like there's always so much more to learn, And I feel like continuous learning, sorry about the music. I live in the Bronx, it's very loud here. Because boot camps, like I feel like continuous learning is essential for early career developers because I feel like in boot camps, they don't teach you enough. They teach you enough to like get started. They teach you how to learn, but the rest is kind of up to you as the developer, I feel like, learning new technologies, new methodologies or what have you will help you understand that there's no one solution to a problem, but multiple solutions with different strengths and weaknesses. So like, when you seriously engage in that continuous learning, like you'll become a better engineer. You'll be able to talk about trade-offs, Yeah, so that's my case for continuous learning, just career growth.
Awesome.
Nice. And like I echo that too, because like for me, continuous learning, it's constantly learning new skills, but also deepening the knowledge that you already have. And I think it's important for earlier career devs because like the tech space, it's always changing and it's a very fluid environment. And because like there are a lot of new technologies that are coming out and a lot of old technologies that are dying, having the ability to learn something at a very deep level relatively quickly really helps us keep up with this landscape. But it also like begs the question like how much like do we learn? And like it you have to be really comfortable with the idea of like I don't have to know everything. And you have to say you have to, one, be comfortable with saying that, but going out of your comfort zone and seeing how you can ask those questions when you see something that you don't know, and be really curious in that mindset.
Yeah, basically, I think I echo also what both of you both are saying, and you really have to be okay with learning as part of your job, like that you're basically almost being paid to learn in a way. And you just even with JavaScript, there used to not be ES6 changes like with let, and they were always using var, and jQuery was the top dog with or like the only JavaScript library. And so you just really have to be aware of changes happening to tech and to the industry, from one day to the other and be okay with that.
Yeah, and I guess to add on to that, like boot camps, like they usually push the MERN stack a lot. And like MERN is, it's a fine stack, but like in all my job searching, I can probably count on maybe two hands the amount of times I've actually seen MERN asked for in job postings. And like it's like I actually made a LinkedIn post about this about a couple weeks ago, and like people were saying that like it's it's not scalable, so it's not really that it's not that widely used in enterprise code. Like it's great for prototyping and stuff like that, but like I feel like if you're advertising yourself as like a MERN developer, like you're kind of putting yourself in a hole, because like you don't want to restrict yourself to whatever boot camps teach you, because that's just the beginning,
Yeah, thank you. So let's talk a little bit more into kind of the ways that you have learned so far in your journey. So what are some kind of learning strategies that you've taken, that you've done, that have been most effective for you personally?
Well, I have tried different ways to learn, and I just pay attention to what works, first of all. Like if I retain the info, whether it's video, whether it's in a long article, or if it's broken up into chunks. And that right now I favor stuff being broken up into chunks, because sometimes articles are way too long, videos are way too long. And for me, I also turn to platforms, some paid, some not, that I just think that provide good quality and good context. I think context is something that's missing sometimes with being with documentation, sometimes with videos or other things that you're looking to learn from. And I'm still learning how to learn, but that's something that I've started to embrace. It's like, how can I be a better learner altogether, whether it's tech or something other non-tech? But that's my first approach to trying to see, like, with my job, with my learning strategy. Sorry.
I find the best way to like solidify things that I learn is to do a couple of things. First, I like to try to build something without using a tutorial. And then the second thing I try to do is that I seek out opportunities to teach. And I do this by posting on LinkedIn. I might make videos for my YouTube channel. I might find opportunities to present at in-person events. And so when you present, it's sort of like, I think it's the Feynman principle. Like if you're able to explain it to a fifth grader or whatever it was, then that means you understand it, right? So, I try to seek out those opportunities, and like it helps with reinforcing my own understanding, but also like, in a field like tech, if you're out trying to teach content, then it has the benefit of like you become active in your community and you become visible, which might help you get noticed one day. So
Yeah, and I echo what both of you said. Like my learning strategies, they've changed drastically over the years. And like for me, what I find is working now is like I'm a very big tinkerer. And so like when I read something or read like a new technology stack, um, I try to build up a mental model of how the technology itself is working, and then I try to ask questions that break that model and see if those questions are being met. Like, am I actually finding the answer? Is the model itself that I've built up breaking in ways that I expect? And if it does, that means that my thinking's on the right track. And so then I try to build it out in like in Visual Studio or any other code editor and see if like it is actually working the way I expect. And if it is, then I try to deepen my knowledge that way and carry on using that.
Yeah, I mean, super interesting perspectives. And another kind of thing that, I think sometimes we take for granted is, and I think this comes from even a very young age, is, we might learn, we might be taught certain concepts, but I don't know if we're actually taught how to learn, because everybody has a different way of learning, and everybody, And that also, you know, changes throughout the years of how you best take in the information. So yeah, thinking about those things, I think is probably very essential for us to not only think about what we're learning, but how we're learning it. So that's, yeah, super helpful. So let's talk a little bit about, I think this is a pretty very common question that comes up a lot, and why people get so overwhelmed with learning is, how do you strike a balance between deepening your expertise in a particular tech stack and also exploring other new technologies that are constantly coming up?
For me, it depends on the project or the technologies that I'm working with at the time. Because I really do project focused things. If that technology itself is needed for me to complete the project, then I will go over at a surface level what is needed to complete or solve the problem at hand that I have currently. And if it is like if the problem requires me to do a deeper dive or understand how certain aspects of that technology are working in order to implement the solution, then I go dive deep into the technology to really figure out how it's working and why things are like breaking the way they are, to get a full understanding of the picture and to see how I could best go about solving that. Um, but if that's only needed for just that one project, I'm not going to go any further than that. But if it's something that I'm doing on a repeated basis, then I really start to dive deeper into that specific stack and see how things are working there, so I can use that knowledge to build on top of other things that I'm doing.
Yeah, I really like that response, Nonso. Thank you. I actually second that because like personally, like I only try to learn something new when I absolutely need to, or if an opportunity somehow presents itself. Like for example, for my first contract, I had to make animations and learn AWS. For my second contract, I learned Vue and I learned how to use Django. And when I recently redesigned my portfolio, I used TypeScript and Next.js. And like that kind of approach, it really helps in cutting out the noise because like it's, you know, like it's tempting to like hear the hot new technology that everybody's talking about. And like you know, it's tempting to want to go out and try it. But like if you don't have a real plan to use the technology, it's, you know, it's, you know, you don't have a real reason to learn it. And if you don't have a real reason to learn it, it's not going to stick. I feel like intention goes a long way when you talk about continuous learning in tech. Like, don't just blindly learn new things just because they're cool, you know? And like, you know, you can still make time to learn like those cool things if you really wanted to, but like that should be like a very small amount of your study time, you know?
That's a great answer, actually. Yeah, both of those. And piggybacking off of that, like for me, I strike a balance with wondering like what new stuff in, let's just say, JavaScript. I only really knew front end JavaScript. And you know, I talked to people and I learned that there was Node and Node.js. I was taught Ruby and Ruby on Rails at my boot camp. And so I thought, well, I would like to be more of a full stack. If it means I can just use JavaScript, then I'll just learn, you know, try to learn Node.js. And, you know, it was also a skill that I saw on job postings. And so for me, I always use job postings to see what latest things, what tech has stuck around, and use that as a way to be like, okay, maybe I should learn this if I want to possibly be, if this is a job or a company I'm interested in, potentially I can say that I've went out of my way to study this. I think look for longevity. There was a tech, there was like a competitor to Node, not to, I think it's still around. It's called Dino or Dent, something like that. But I don't really see it mentioned as often. And so for me, it's like, okay, well, I'm glad I didn't, you know, start learning that right away without no knowledge, no intention, like Adam says, just because it sounds flashy. Be wary of flashy stuff, I guess you could say, you know. And if it's something that's in your like jobs around your local area, then pay attention to what tech they're using.
Yeah, I mean, those are some really great pointers. Yeah, like definitely, you know, there needs to be a reason for your learning, otherwise it's not going to stick. So that's awesome. Thank you for that. Let's move on to talking a little bit about some challenges that you may have faced in your learning. So, you know, have you faced any challenges throughout your years of learning? And if so, how did you overcome them? So for example, maybe did you face any sort of like a learning burnout per se? And if so, how did you handle it?
For
Uh,
me, I haven't really like faced like a learning burnout per se. But like I try to change my learning strategies often to see what works. It's really for me, it's really trial and error. And if it works, it works, and I'm gonna stick with it. But sometimes I just like to explore other different styles of learning and see if I can incorporate those styles into what I already do. If not, then give up on that process.
so definitely it's been a journey for me to, I've blindly copied tutorials without really understanding what I was doing. And so I caution you all to just copy along to somebody when they're doing a project. Danny Thompson said it recently in a post. I really like that. Like people who put together those courses, those mini projects for their courses, they have planned, they do a lot of planning behind the scenes. They're not just doing it from scratch right there. So that's just something to remember, that when you're going along. And so for me, I've tried to come up with new strategies as well. Like, okay, maybe I do follow a tutorial, but I'm not going to do the same exact thing that they're doing. I'm going to use a different CSS library. I'm going to try to do, maybe add an extra feature or do something different. But also something for me that I've struggled with is trying to learn too many things at once. And sometimes they're not really related. And I still catch myself doing that. I have the time, but when you're working full time and you're still trying to do that, best to kind of keep it to one type of topic at a time.
I guess to address the point about learning burnout, like I've definitely experienced that. You know, it and I notice that it happens to me like when I focus on a specific technology for way too long. Like you know, in my experience, like burnout is, it's like it's basically your body telling you that something needs to change, right? You know, in the context of learning, what that could mean is that like what you're studying is too boring, or it's a little too challenging for your skill level, or you're just not vibing with the material. So like you know, when that has happened to me, like I try to step back and I think about whether what I'm studying is relevant to the kind of engineering work that I eventually want to do, whether for money or not. And you know, I find that if it is relevant, then that just means that my cup is empty. So I give myself permission to just blow off my studies for a day or two, and I usually come back feeling refreshed and revigorated. And sometimes things make more sense because your subconscious mind is quietly processing what you learned, even if you're not actively involved in that processing. Now, if I find that what I'm studying is not relevant to what I want to do, if I realize it's not relevant, then, you know, that's when I come up with a new study routine, new material. I would say this has only happened maybe like twice or three times in my learning journey. Like I had to kind of give up learning AI recently because it was just way too challenging. Like, you know, to get a job in AI, you need like, you know, you probably need a degree. You're going to need to go to a specialized boot camp or something. But, you know, I just figured like, you know, I'm looking for a job right now. The most important thing for me is to focus on my JavaScript fundamentals, you know React very well, that kind of stuff. So, you have to come up with a study routine that's closely aligned to like what kind of engineering work you actually want to do in the future, for money or not.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's yeah, really important to kind of make sure we're setting goals that are reasonable, right? Because I think the you know there's a certain kind of like excitement that comes with learning and like seeing something new for the first time, but that might quickly go away, or that might instigate that kind of burnout. So yeah, there's a lot of things to consider. So I think Angie, you mentioned a little bit about trying to learn while having a full-time job. So let's talk a little bit about kind of learning while keeping that kind of work-life balance, but making sure that learning doesn't completely take over your entire life and it becomes too much. So how do you integrate continuous learning into kind of your daily routine without it completely taking over your personal time?
Yeah, I guess I'll start with that. I unfortunately have realized that I just started to schedule everything, whether it's like not even just tech, just my daily routine. Because at some point, because networking and job hunting is itself, it's like a full-time job. And so it's not going to get any better when you're actually working full-time. And I was working full-time just up until recently. And so even then, it was hard for me to continue learning on the side. But I realized that the only way I'm going to get anything done, even if it's like a teensy bit of learning or anything, as long as it's meaningful, and if it was something like, oh, I get it now, I get this, aha, you gotta schedule. I think for me at least, this may not apply to everybody, but for me, what's helped is just to schedule my day. Like I wake up, I have like I do a little yoga or something to wake me up. It's just a routine, a habit for me. And then I'd have coffee, and I like my whole day is just scheduled. And then learning is just part of it. Because if we was to learn all day and be at my desk all day, that's just not healthy. Not for mind, your body, your mind. You gotta kind of have a limit to how much learning your mind can take. So for me, it's like just structure, just being organized with my day.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, like basically, like just like Angie was saying, I'm kind of in the same boat right now, like, looking for a job, like, putting my focus into that. Um, so basically, like the way I do it is like, I'm thankful to have a fiance who has a schedule that's very similar to mine. Basically, like we have a hard start at 9 a.m. We have a hard stop at 6 p.m. each day. And so like before 9, I don't code, I don't study. After 6, I don't code, I don't study. Right. And like I try to balance my life with other things that are mentally stimulating other than code. Like for example, obviously I'm very big on music. I try to like have a practice routine going that's like do some finger exercises on the piano before I start my work. Sometimes if I need to step back from my code, I'll probably just like I don't know, like take out Duolingo and study Spanish for like 15 minutes just to get my mind on something else, engage some different part of my brain, and then usually I come back to whatever I'm studying and it's just fresher. And I also work meditation into my afternoon, like that part where you just the part of the day where you just start to slump. That's where I just stop coding. I go to I go to my bedroom and I just meditate for like 20 minutes. So, so like I try to like have different activities throughout the day just to make it so that not everything is about code all the time. You know, it does, having different activities that you can kind of like engage in other than code is it's good for your retention and it's good for your creativity too.
And for me, like one of the things that I personally have to get better at is compartmentalizing how much and when I code, because I have this nasty habit of being stuck on a problem and wanting to solve it. and not letting anything else like try to distract me from that. Um, but in that sense, like I also do like yoga. And so if I, for example, or if I'm stuck on a problem, I either one do a yoga session or I just step back from the code, go for a walk, and try to see if I can solve it that way. Not actively thinking about it, but sometimes I just get these aha moments when I'm on a walk, and then when I get back to the computer, I'm like, it's done, like it's solved. But I also try to integrate like the breaking principle that I described earlier into other aspects of my life. Like I'm personally, I was a researcher. I did cancer research for a bit, and that really taught me how to, like, the importance of asking questions. And so like I like to get into discussions with anybody really on anything, trying to find out like what's on their mind, like what are they fascinated about, and really dig deep into that, and apply these same principles to learn from them, because like I don't know where their aspect is coming from, and so I really get curious about what they have to say, and so I try to integrate that into understanding them, and then try to build out this mental model for myself based on what they're saying, and then apply it to like the coding, to whatever problems that I'm trying to solve with code.
Yeah, that's actually fascinating. That's really cool. And it was cool to hear that there were some commonalities between the all three of you, that, you know, with kind of just like walking away from the space, and things like that. So that's really cool. And I feel like I have a lot to learn from. Um, I want to kind of go back to something that I think Adam mentioned before, about, I think, you know, the contract positions that you're working, you had to learn new tech stacks right off the get-go of something you didn't know. So maybe this is more of, I mean, Adam, maybe you can go first, but other people can jump in as well. But so how did you kind of deal with a situation like that where you didn't know it at first, and you had to quickly learn it as soon as possible? How is
Uh,
that kind of learning?
yeah. Okay. So basically, yeah. So the story is like, I had to, I had a week to actually spin up a functioning API using Django, and I never used Django before. So the way I handled it was, you know, the minute I realized that this was something I had to do, I was like, okay, I'm gonna find you know, a seven. I'm gonna look for one of those really long tutorials that you find on YouTube. I found it. I managed to find a decent one on Django, and I prioritized. I think it was Nonso who took a similar approach. Like, he talked about prioritizing learning only what you need. So, like, you know, what that looked like for me was like I would skip past, you know, building, you know, the stuff where the in the tutorial they built stuff that I wasn't going to build. So, like, you know, when I got to the chapter on template rendering, I was like, okay, skip. And when I, you know, connecting a database, like that wasn't relevant to what I was trying to work on. So I just, you know, I only like just learned what I needed to, right? And not only that, like I didn't necessarily follow what was in the tutorial. And I think Angie mentioned something about this. So like I didn't just try to build what was in the tutorial. What I would do is like I would just kind of read through the code, you know, just watch him. I watched the instructor just kind of, you know, build whatever they were building, and I, you know, I would go back to my own code and see, okay, how can I apply what I learned to this particular code right here? And you know, I've taken that approach with Vue when I was interviewing for the job, and you know, I know this is going to be the approach I'll take when I wrestle with a new tech and, you know, whatever I do next. So yeah, just find a long tutorial, you know, only go to all the relevant pieces and just, figure out how you can apply it to whatever you're working on, Yeah.
Like I echo that because like for me, I try to treat it like software. Like I build the MVP or try to get the minimal things that I need to do in order to solve the problem. And if I need to go deeper, then I go through the documentation and then really get an understanding of how things are working. Like for an example, like for one of the projects that I was working on, I built out um, this code sandbox piece, and like it was my first time working with that library, and like I didn't know really anything about how to integrate that into my blog platform. And so when I went through the documentation, like I just found things that helped me get up and running quickly. And then once I built out this small little MVP and integrated it, then started to wonder, oh, like how can I make this better? Or what are the details that are behind this simplicity that the library is providing so that I can build my own things and make it custom.
So I haven't had to do either of those things, I think, yet. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me that I would, and so I really like the suggestions myself, like that Adam and Nonso are providing. Um, find a long tutorial, only go to the relevant things. I think I'll probably adopt that. But I think for on the job, for me, the closest example I can think of is having to learn some Shopify, the Shopify platform that I had at my last job. And the truth is, I wasn't even the only one that had to learn it. There was another developer who was exiting out, and we both him, so myself and my manager were both learning together how to use this new platform for this one particular client. And we kept turning to another developer who was able to help us, and it was more collaborative. But my approach for learning anything new, though, is to always try to do it myself. Like, try to learn as much as I can on my own. Write down something that doesn't make sense. Like, try to keep a notebook or some like just jot it down so I can remember what exactly I'm stuck on in case I can't resolve it still. I also trust, hopefully, this is more for on the job stuff, by the way, so I don't want to confuse it with the examples that Adam and Nonso provided. But and I trust that my manager has provided enough material for me to, like enough resources. I'll try to look again on my own resources like Google something. And if I'm just still stuck, I just try to use what I wrote down and reach out to a fellow developer, someone who I think can help me, because you're just gonna get stuck, unfortunately, sometimes, and you might get stuck together. We're like, oh, and that's just the best example I can think of for learning new things quickly.
And like to add on to that, also get comfortable with asking a ton of questions when you're learning something new, like you haven't worked with this tech stack before. Get comfortable with seeking out people who have already worked with this thing and ask them a bunch of questions. Ask them the questions that you don't know the answers to, and see where you can go from there.
And if they're thinking that you are asking questions and they're giving you answers and you're still not getting them, then that's a communication issue. Some people need to say things differently, or they're using the jargon is just something you're either not used to, or they're using like too much advanced jargon that doesn't apply. And so don't, again, like, yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions, or maybe ask them to rephrase it a different way if necessary.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that segues nicely into what I wanted to ask after, a little bit about, you know, how the community, our tech community, supports our learning. So how has kind of being part of the community, and that includes like the LinkedIn community that we're all part of, or like a developer group or tech meetup like Tech Tank, how has that kind of supported you and your learning journey?
I guess I can go. It's allowed me to really expand on one of the last aspects of learning, which is really explaining it to others. Um, like for, and that's why I started doing technical writing pieces, because if I don't have another person to explain it to, then I could just write it down. And if somebody else asks me, um, it's a way for me to get down my thoughts and um, get down my thoughts and see if I'm really understanding the technology stack the way it's meant to be understood. And so if I can write it in a very cohesive way, then and it's easy for somebody else who's never even heard of this stack before to pick up, then I know that I've gotten to a point in my understanding of that stack that it's easy for me to explain it to others. And so either write it down or get into conversations in discussions with other people on that technology itself.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like software can be a very lonely endeavor, and it's very like intellectually taxing. So it's, you know, like if you're not careful, like it's easy to let your mental health fall by the wayside. And so surrounding yourself with others in the field, being part of a community, going to meetups, all that kind of stuff, it's good for you for like two reasons. One, you have people to talk to about stuff that nobody else will ever understand or care about. And two, you know, if you're surrounded by developers who are like exceptional, then you know your it might improve your skills simply by osmosis, because you learn how they reason about code, you learn how they talk, all that stuff. Like, you know, like I remember reading somewhere, and I don't remember if I mentioned this earlier, but like you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So like, you know, if you're surrounding yourself with smart people all the time, one day you're going to be a smart person, you know? So, you know, I feel like having a community is very essential to that. Like, you know, like I recently started learning how to do, I recently started learning embedded engineering, which is basically like software on like little pieces of hardware. And like, I had no idea what I was doing when I first started, but like, I started talking to one of my LinkedIn connections who is much more familiar with that kind of stuff. And he was able to help me figure out some stuff that like I would never have figured out just by slogging through my Udemy course. So yeah, surround yourself with smarter people. It'll help you.
Yeah, going off of that, community has been huge. It's been crucial just to come out of my shell. I mean, that's a whole other topic, but it kind of relates because I wouldn't have had the courage to post more on LinkedIn about what I'm learning, even if no one really pays attention. There are some people who will reach out to me and be like, "Yeah, I really love what you're sharing, what you're posting." And then you know, you get feedback sometimes from people who care, who just want to help you like just be better because they're seeing that you're putting in the effort to learn and they want to help and they want to just see you grow. I can think of a couple of things like someone mentioned like memory leaks when I was doing something with React and use effect. And I'm like learning TypeScript and I was like, yeah, I don't understand this generics thing. And so it can provide a lot of benefits, like, and you can learn how to how to do a better job at talking about code, and that can be really helpful for job interviews and just boosting your confidence that you know you are getting this stuff that it's like Adam said, taxing on your brain to understand. And so community is really important, and more than community, it's active communities. It's people who are actually doing things like like Tech Tank, having these talks, these sessions. You know, some communities are very dormant, and so it's just something to think to remember that it's more about communities that are actually doing something, that are being active.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Let's talk a little bit about, or maybe I guess, you know, if you have any platforms, courses, resources, et cetera, that for you have been kind of invaluable to you in your learning journey, or maybe if you have like a go-to list of kind of like resources that help you stay updated.
So my number one resource is called Front End Masters. It's like $40 a month. Oh, Angie knows what I'm talking about. And you get access to this huge library of courses taught by actual vetted industry professionals. So you know you're getting high quality content, and it's updated very frequently. I mean, obviously the content on there is very front end focused, but you know, there is some back end stuff on there. Like you can learn about databases. You know, there's like algorithms. Is it that? Yeah, that's the one, Chris. Yep. Frontendmasters.com. Yep. Yeah, but basically, like if I need to learn something new, my first instinct is to go to Front End Masters and see if someone recorded a session on the topic. And if not, for whatever reason, then I just go to YouTube and I just look for one of those 4+ hour long tutorials. Or if you want something a little meatier, if I want something a little meatier, I just wait until Udemy has a sale, which is very often, and I just drop $10 to $20 on a course that's like 50 hours long. So, you know, yeah. So basically, Front End Masters, Udemy, and YouTube. Those are my go-tos.
Adam took half my resources. Yeah, if we're being specific though, yeah, Front End Masters is definitely one of my top, like for video, because like again, it's like broken up into chunks, the videos. So like, and I really love the platform. I also really love Codecademy for the same reason, but instead of video, it's text form. And they have a lot of stuff too that I really like. And I think they always have like a yearly sale, like 50% off during Black Friday. So something to look out for if you're more project based. Yeah, Codecademy, not Code Academy, it's Codecademy. It's more project based, and there's just a lot of resources. They even have forums, chapters, you know, things like that. With YouTube, I really like free code camps, video stuff. They have a lot of like those hours long videos. I also used to watch this person called the Net Ninja. He was one of my favorites on YouTube. He just really explained things very well. And again, I go to Udemy sometimes when there's like a sale. They have them like all the time, all the time. And yeah, those are some of my go-tos.
For me, I like to go to Front End Mentor. They have little UI challenges that you can do. It ranges from newbie challenges, which really just focus on like HTML and CSS, to your more advanced, and they call it guru challenges, where you're starting to integrate multi-page, and you're building out this entire full stack application. So if I want to like just go do a challenge there, that's my first stop to go. I also go to YouTube. I check out either Kevin Powell. He does a lot of videos on CSS. Um, People say he's the CSS king. Um, Really is just that he has a really strong understanding of CSS, and like he explains it really well. And so I like to check out his channel to see what's like coming up or what's like really new in CSS. I like to check out Una Kravitz or Adam Argyle. They work on the CSS working group. These are the people who actually write the specification for CSS. So just to see what's new and what's coming up, I like to listen to their podcast. And in terms of TypeScript, there's this internet person. His name is Matt Pocock. He does a lot of things with TypeScript and seeing how we can better understand TypeScript. Um, and in order to really get like the video aspect in terms of like these interactive widgets as well, I also like to check out Scrimba. Their platform allows you to watch videos, but it also allows you to pause the videos mid video and then mess around with the code and to see how things are really updating live.
Wow, that was an overwhelming list of resources. I think maybe what we'll do is I think we can, yeah, this is going to be saved. So we'll gather up everything and maybe share it with everybody once once I share the recording, etc. So thank you so much for all of that. That was really great, and I'm really excited to check some of those out. I know we're running out of time because I do want to leave some time for Q&A. But just a quick final question, I guess, before we head on to Q&A. In your opinion, I guess, you know, where do you kind of see, even if things are shifting, I know everything is about AI right now, but where do you kind of see the biggest shifts happening in the next near 5 years? And kind of what do you think, and maybe this is too big of a question, I don't know, but what kind of skills and technologies do you foresee becoming kind of indispensable for us and kind of something that we can continue to use, like even in the long run, in the coming years?
Well, I think the answer to that question lies beyond like the specific language or specific framework or what have you. Because like, you know, tech grows at like an exponential rate, right? So like we're kind of like at this point right here where the curve is about to steepen, right? And so like I think because of that exponential growth rate, I think that AI is going to be more commonly used as a tool, whether you're making it, whether you're making interfaces for it, or you're just using it as part of your workflow. You know, and it seems like businesses expect more from their developers than ever before, and AI is proving itself to be somewhat useful in speeding up workflows. You know, it's not like 2015 where, you know, you could get hired just for knowing how to program like at all, just for knowing JavaScript. Now you have to know a bit of everything, and you also have to be, you know, more proactive about finding out stuff that you don't know. Like if you love learning, this is kind of an exciting time, even if it is a bit scary. And, you know, like I feel like if you can figure out how to leverage AI to boost your creativity, you might be okay. That's just my take. I could be wrong, you know.
Yeah, that is a tough question to answer, and I had the most difficulty thinking about an answer for this because it just seems a little beyond me. And that's why I go out of my way to follow people on LinkedIn, people who are like, this is what their followers like, this is what other people are following them to, like to see their opinion on the state of things changing. Like what is their opinion on AI and ChatGPT? And I think that it's going to be more of, I even have my old mentor who I talked to about ChatGPT, and he, you know, everyone's going to have a little different opinion about ChatGPT and other similar AI. And for him, it was like, yeah, it's not going to replace our jobs. Like, and you know, he was like shaking his head, and it was. But then I talked to a close friend, and he's like, well, it could be a good tool for workflows for a developer workflow. And so I just can't get past that the AI thing is the most dominant topic at the moment. I think, yeah, JavaScript's still going to be around. It's proven itself to be very versatile from going from the front end to the back end, and they're still making changes to the language that seem to move in that direction. Even CSS, SAS is probably going to be obsolete at one point. So if they're making improvements to CSS, like nesting, that's really exciting. but I don't think that we're in danger of losing our jobs as developers. But we probably are going to be expected to add more to our tool belt, like the AI stuff.
Yeah, I echo that too. Like with AI being the hot topic now, like it changes the way we work, and but it doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't change what we're going to be doing. It just changes how we go about programming and building these applications itself. But to touch on like specific technologies, like that is, I think it's a very big question, but to really touch on like the web in general, like things like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, like these are web primitives, and like these are the languages that we use to build websites and web applications. And so if the web does go, like if the web goes away, then yes, those languages would become obsolete. But things like HTML and CSS, everything compiles down to that in the end. And so I think these languages, knowing them and knowing them in depth, um, will really help in the long run, and I think they're going to be sticking around for a while.
Yeah. So thank you so much for that. I think we're already getting some questions in the chat. I have a feeling we're going to go a little bit over time. Are you folks okay with that? Okay, thank you so much. So Neha asked, and I think you already answered, who do you follow? Who do you follow, I guess, on LinkedIn or just like elsewhere? So if people want to talk about that. And also, I'm just going to open it up to everyone now. Feel free, if anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hand. There's a raise hand feature, or post your questions on the chat as well for these wonderful panelists.
One person I do follow, I'll just say since I didn't know if we are gonna keep talking, is Kyle Simpson. I think that's his last name. He's
Yeah.
he's an instructor on front end masters, but I heard about him during my boot camp, and I just like to hear his opinion on stuff. He's very, very much a JavaScript fan, and that's just his expertise. And so that's someone who I would follow if you want to check out his profile, some of the stuff that he's put out. I'm not sure if I agree with what he said about not the uselessness of like the triple equals. I have come to rely on that, but I can't think of anybody else at this moment. But I will
What's
see
his last
Neha
name?
and Simpson. Kyle
Kyle
Simpson.
Simpson?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's this guy that Sammy just posted.
But I'm sure there's others. So yeah.
Cool. Do we have any other audience questions? Don't be shy. These are all very nice people. Sammy, go for it.
What is your opinion on using out-of-date resources to learn off of, for all of you guys?
Out-of-date resources? Oh, okay. They're kind of tricky. That's on the one hand, it'll be a lot harder to slog through, but on the other hand, if you can make it through an outdated resource and still get the thing to work, then like you'll have some really nice debugging skills, or you'll really become familiar with the documentation of whatever tech you're using. So, it's I would mostly caution against that because you'll be doing more mental work than necessary. But if you're up for a challenge, why not, right?
And to add on to that, it also depends on how out of date that resource is. If it's something like 10 years, then like yes, I would lean very far on the side of caution. But like if it's something within like the year or two, well, things can change drastically in this field. But like sometimes like the changes that are made are not as drastic. So those resources that are a year or two old, they still give you a base understanding of that technology stack, but it's really left to you to now figure out what the differences are between the resource that you've been following and what the latest resources are, so that you can try to figure out those differences and then integrate that into what you're learning.
Yeah, and I guess it also depends on the technology itself, because like, there are some technologies out there that barely change. Like, for example, the C language, that that barely changes. Like, I remember seeing, I read an article that said that the C language changes like on average 1.5 times a year or something like that. So, if the technology is stable, then I guess it doesn't really matter how outdated it is. But like, if you're talking about something like JavaScript, like it's probably a crapshoot.
Yeah, I'd caution against old resources too. Just be wary of the date, basically.
Yeah, I think there's a question in the chat from Abu, similar to Sammy's question. Do you use resources outside of the internet?
I want to say, like, do you mean like books and other like all those types of resources? Because if it's books, then I want to say no. That's just because like the internet, it has a vast array of different types of resources, like video, yeah, like video, blogs, articles, opinion pieces. And so like I use a combination of those to really form my own opinion on that stack, and then try to build my own mental model to see how everything's working. And then if I do have questions, and then I go ask and find the people who have the answers to them.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little thrown off by that question too, because most of my resources are on the internet. I mean, like, I feel like if I were to get a book, I mean, I do have a couple of books that I've read about coding, but they're very high level. It's not like, intro to Python, build this project. No, it's more like stuff like Clean Code by Uncle Bob, for example. And there was one other one I read, but yeah, not a lot of books. It's mostly internet.
Same. I have books as well. I have a couple on Ruby, but I do worry again that they're probably outdated. I mean, there are some fundamentals that you can probably pick up from when you're looking at books, and people who use books, who write books, they usually, I think, are aware that how quickly the tech changes, and so they'll have like other additions. But then, are you going to pay for that whole new book, or are you just going to stick with the book you bought and have it in the back of your mind that you know some stuff may have changed, like maybe they added some new functionality or something that so I tend to just use the internet as well, but I think I'd be like Adam in that I'm looking at books that are more high level as well, because I don't think that you'll see a lot of changes happening to those types of topics.
Yeah. Thanks so much. I think we have a question from Chitra.
Yep. Hi, thanks, Chris. Thank you to the panel, really quick. I think this is less of a question and more of a feeling of wanting to be validated. This addresses something I think that Adam had talked about earlier. When you're working on in your contract, or you're providing services on a project, there comes a time when you are asked to work with a tech stack that you're not familiar with, or you're not really interested in, but you kind of have to, force yourself to learn it. How do you, or, deal with the frustrations that come with that? Because you sometimes feel like you are now going off a trajectory that you had initially thought you were going to be on. Have you had those situations, and do you feel the same way? That sense of frustration. And what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so just so I understand the question, you're asking like how have I dealt with frustration with learning technology that's not really part of this part of what I want to learn. Is that correct?
In a sense, yes, that would be one part of it. But also, how do you make sure that you have a path, that you stick to that path? And how do you address the fact that sometimes you have a job that doesn't allow you to continue on that path because you have a limited amount of energy to study, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like I and this was something I kind of learned coming out of my second contract. Like, you know, I kind of like sunk a lot of time into learning, Vue and like really diving into, diving much deeper than I would have wanted to in Django. I mean, like, I don't want to necessarily badmouth any certain technologies, but like, I guess it really depends. Like, it kind of goes back to the question of like, what kind of technology do you want to work in ultimately, and like, I guess like, I mean, I mainly did the contract because like I needed the money, but you know, I'm not quite sure how to answer the question, honestly. Like, I get like, I don't know if I necessarily deal with frustration, but I think I understand what you mean by like, it's not necessarily the tech that you want to do. Yeah, because like I don't necessarily see myself using Django in my personal projects, but like at the end of the day, these are all just kind of tools that means to an end, really. And like I think it's important that you learn to detach yourself from the technology that you use. And like I feel like in the beginning of your journey, it's really easy to be like, oh, I'm a React developer, I want to get good at React. But like, in reality, like, you might work at a company you really want to, and then you don't use React. So it's like, I guess at that point, it's sort of like, you know, what is your focus? Like, is it the company that you're working for? Is it the tool? It's like you have to kind of make that decision for yourself. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
I really like that insight, Adam, because I agree because my, your company might end up changing stacks, and you might end up having to learn to use Go rather than Python that you've been using. And so I think you have to be okay to switch to learn something. That's different than if you were hired and you were led with the impression that you were going to do something. Then that's different because then it's like, okay, why I'm not gonna, I'm gonna try to find a different position that, you know, isn't that's more of a culture, issue, I think, there than the issue of, oh, I'm not coding in the language or stack that I wanted to. It's more, I would be more upset with wow, they misled me, and I probably passed up a different opportunity because I thought I was going to do this type of work and then I'm not. And so I think it's more of a, like I said, culture, workplace type of issue for as a red flag than the actual tech stack itself, because you'll probably be asked to learn new things. If I'm right about we get paid to learn in a way.
And like to add on to that, yes, it's company culture, but at the same time, don't. There's this one quote one of my managers said. It goes, "Don't be afraid to throw away code." And a lot of companies, they start off with one stack and say, "Oh, there's this new stack, and it does more efficient. It does what we're doing, but more efficiently." And so we're going to throw away essentially everything that we've built and rebuild it um, in this new stack. Yes, some may argue that like that may be a waste of time because like if it's already working, then why do that? But at the same time, it if it has increases in gains, then it makes sense for the company, then yes, it will be uncomfortable, but at the same time, we get paid to learn, and we also get paid to be uncomfortable. And so it's just about really getting comfortable, embracing the unknown, and embracing this uncertainty.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, I think one last final question, because I know we're over time, from Sebastian. Let's make it maybe hopefully a quick question, Sebastian. Sorry, we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to turn it on. I actually have two questions. The first one is you mentioned that you usually use internet resource and don't use books too much. I think all the guests already talked about that. However, usually I think if we want to learn about the programming fundamentals like operating system or the basic of database or the network hierarchy, if you want to learn those kind of things, I think usually the books will offer you more detailed and solid background. So what is your point of this? Because actually I go through lots of books of those kind of things like data structure, algorithm, operating system. So, but I really find them useful in real life. So I'm not sure what is your point about this. And also, I think in the near future, maybe quantum computing is coming. So what's your point? What's your take in this? Because the quantum computing is quite different with what we have right now, which is based on the binary systems. So what's your take? That's my question. Thank you.
To answer your first question, it's not that I don't like, yes, I did say that like I don't often use books, but then again, books, they're really just a transfer of knowledge, and it's a medium for authors or writers to transfer what they know to the people that are reading their book. And like you could say the exact same thing for like a blog article or an opinion piece. It's a transfer of knowledge from the author to the reader. And so books themselves, they are very valuable products. And if we can create a way where we can do that online, which we do have, which are ebooks, um, then we can create these two different ways or these two different mediums that make it more accessible to people who are reading or consuming that information. So it's not that I don't like books, I do. I really do enjoy writing, and I really do enjoy explaining what I know and writing that down. But at the same time, I try to find different mediums that work for me. And then to answer your second question on quantum computing, I don't have too much knowledge there in terms of like how programming is going to change. But if you want to chat about quantum computing, I can send you my LinkedIn, and then we can have a chat about that.
Yeah, so I guess to piggyback off of what Nonso was saying earlier about books, like all these subjects that you mentioned earlier, I think it was like data structures, network engineering, operating system stuff. What you're talking about there, those are all like very high level things. And books can be valuable for understanding high level concepts. I guess the reason that the internet is more, I guess, prevalent in our studies than books is that technology changes all the time, and the internet is basically one giant living document, whereas books are static. And if we were to write a book about the fundamentals of JavaScript, that book could be obsolete in 5 years. So that's not really a good use case for a book if you're learning a programming language, because languages change. But you were talking about more about fundamental stuff which never changes. So books are valuable for that. You can underline, like you can probably process more reading a book because you can feel the page in your hands, like it's tangible. You can highlight and all that good stuff. But yeah, but when it comes to living technology that's constantly updated, books are not the best medium. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have much to add except I think like I have a JavaScript, HTML, CSS book. It's a two-part book, I think, two books by John Duckett, I think is the author. And I do remember that being helpful, but I also thought took it with a grain of salt that there are some things that are probably outdated a bit. But I think it'd be useful to look for books that are revered, like they are highly rated. First of all, if you do want to have like some book, maybe you don't have the internet, maybe you're out camping or something and you want a book with you. And some people just like the feel of a book. I know I do. But I think find a book that isn't trying to teach you about some bells and whistles and shiny stuff with a programming language, or even with something like React, because React has changed a lot, for instance. And I think be prepared, I think, maybe to use the internet if something in the book probably doesn't make sense. Quantum computing, I just did a Google search because I had no idea what you're talking about. And so unfortunately, I don't have much to provide, but I do think that if you were interested in learning more about it, then like if you're on LinkedIn, I would try to find people who are talking about that type of stuff. You can search hashtags and you can search for people like in the network tab of your LinkedIn and see what people are talking about. And if someone's talking about, hashtag quantum computing, then that would be a great way to stay up to date with the industry and find people who are likewise interested and potentially connect with them. And so that's the only thing I can provide for quantum computing.
Okay, thank you for sharing your ideas. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, especially to the panelists for all of your extremely thoughtful answers. Thank you for sticking around for an extra 18 minutes. So I want to send like my utmost gratefulness to Adam, Angie, and Nonso for your time and insight and wisdom tonight. Please make sure you do add to the LinkedIn sheet so other people can connect with you further. I think Sammy has been plugging in our invite link in the LinkedIn sheet continuously. Also going to, if you want to follow us for future events like this, here are some of our links to receive alerts for future events. We meet in person a lot in Toronto. If you're here, please join our meetup. And we post events like this on our LinkedIn, and our meetup page, and you can find us on our website as well. Unfortunately, because we have used so much time, I don't think we're going to have time for a networking session. However, please connect with everybody here through the LinkedIn docs, and you can further build connections that way. Thank you, everybody. We're going to stop the recording now.